The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff or management of Visionary-related entertainment.
Good afternoon and aloha. Welcome to Maui. Hello. That's a good start. I must have lunch caught in my teeth or something. Welcome to Maui Nonprofit Notes. Each week on this show, you'll find a stalking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom, located in the Waikapu Base Yard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. During this hour, we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies and just how they're changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today, we're going to start off our show talking to hello, this is terrible. I can't believe this. It's like I haven't seen this before. Talking to Brooke Brown, who is the Executive Director of Nakeki O'Emalia. Hi, Brooke. How you doing?
Hi, Susie. Thank you very much.
You know, sometimes it's like the more I study, the less I'm prepared. You know how that goes?
Oh, yes.
It's like I should just gather the information, come in, sit down, and just start talking. And that's what this is, a talk show, right?
Talk story.
I mean, we don't know what we're going to end up talking about when we start because I'm sure there's going to be something we want to talk a little more about than maybe we had thought. Did that make sense to anybody?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Nakeki O'Emalia. Interesting story behind the formation of this organization. And I know we've told it many times on the show, but it's been a long time since you've been on.
It's been a while.
I think we need to refresh everybody's memory as to what the organization's about and how it came about.
All right. Excuse me. Well, Emilia was my second child, and in 2012, she was diagnosed out of the blue with stage 4 colorectal cancer. And despite her valiant efforts to come out on top, she died in February 2014, a few days after their son's third birthday. And for several months, I was all I could do to get off my bed. And my background was as a clinical psychologist, and I worked with adults, and a lot of adults came into my practice, and they would come in and they'd say, I don't know why I'm depressed, but I've been having a really hard time recently, or anxiety might be a factor up. And they'd say, nothing's changed in my life, so I don't know why I feel so badly. And we'd start talking, and then I'd find out that one of their parents had died when they were young. And I'd say, oh, what month did your mother die? And it was bingo, like a light would go on. They might say August. And frequently, nothing more needed to be said because tears would just come out of nowhere. Or it was like they'd been hit over the head with a ton of bricks. And it was all the unexpressed grief coming up for them to process. I had other adults come in for reasons of relationship problems. They couldn't stay in relationship, they couldn't be in relationship, they were having trouble in their marriage, lots of things that tracked back to, again, the loss of a parent when they were young. So after Emilia died, I was really concerned for my grandchild, for Kahala, and wanted him to have services so he could process his grief as he grew older and not turn into one of these adults who ended up in a therapist's office. And at the time I began my pursuit, I did not know about Liliuokalani Trust. And Hospice Maui said, oh, it'd be great if you start something. We don't have anything for children. We'd really like you to do this. We'll support you any way we can. And there's been a lot of grace around this, Susie. And I learned about the Dougie Center, which is in Portland, and it's the gold standard in the children's bereavement field. And I decided I would start the equivalent of a Dougie Center here on Maui for Maui's kids. Then I learned about Kuinoliukulani, and they said, oh, wonderful if you would do this, because by their charter they can only work with people who have Hawaiian ancestry. And so they were thrilled because they have nobody they can refer to. So I started the steps to found this program, and we're modeled on the Dougie Center. We're open to all children 3 to 18, no matter what their ethnicity. The program is free, and the way it works is the groups meet, they're ongoing groups, and they meet every 2 weeks, and we want an adult or adults to come with a child, and it's for any child who's lost a sibling, a parent, auntie, uncle, grandmother, any person that the child loves. In other words, for a grieving child, but of a two-legged variety. And we want an adult, at least one adult, to come with the child. And they come and they meet separately. So they meet at the same time, but in separate groups. So the kids are in their group, and the adults are in their group. So the adults get support around their grief. And this is really helpful because a lot of children won't talk to their parents because they know how sad and upset their parents are, and they don't want to add to it. And there are other households where the children want to talk about it, but the adults can't because they don't want to touch their own grief. And the kids, kids are smart. They just pick up on this. So, and some kids are outright silenced. We don't talk about that. So it stops there. So that was the genesis, and we started our groups last September, and we're meeting.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now you said from ages 3 to 18?
Yes.
Okay, so there's obviously a couple different groups for the age spans.
Yes, theoretically there is. Right now, we don't have a group going for the 3s, 4s, and 5s, simply because our census was down. We had one going for a while, but then somebody moved, and we need more people because little kids get sick a lot. And if you just have one child or 2 children show up, or one parent with 2 children, that's not a group.
Right.
And the value is in the peer support group. So right now that's on hold until we get more people. And with the older kids, we've just put everybody in, and they've ranged from 7 to 17, all in the same room. And again, the number varies. And we open with a circle where people go around and they say their name and who died, why they're there. And after that, if a child wants to be silent for months, they can. Nobody's going to make the child talk. It's really, we create an atmosphere that's no demand. And, the only demand is you don't hurt somebody else in the group. No punching, no spitting, no biting, things like this. And no hurtful talk, or no saying, oh, that's a dumb thing to say. That doesn't go on there. It's a very safe place. And so we have different activities that we do, and sometimes they're verbal, and we've got craft materials and a lot of things, and some of them relate to grief. Most of them relate to grief in some way. And so the kids can separate if they want. Like there might be some little kids that want to play a game or want to draw or do origami. And yet the older kids, the teens, tend to want to talk more. They'll sit and talk. And we have enough facilitators to, make that all possible. And down the line, when we get more people, we are most likely going to separate into more homogeneous age groups. And that's pretty much how we go.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Do you think the fact that you have so few of the younger kids is an educational process for the parents?
I think the reason we don't have more groups already is because a lot of the parents, and I don't care whether the child is 15 or 16 or 4 or 5. I think that, first of all, death is a pretty much taboo topic in our society. We're pretty death phobic. And then when you get into a death in a family, it's hard. Grief hurts. It's a really painful thing. So a lot of people, adults, will throw themselves into being super busy, doing everything they can to avoid feeling their own pain. Then when you bring it, back to the children, I think that unless the children are acting out, really demonstrating behavioral problems in school, the parents think the kids are fine. And that is not necessarily the case. Not necessarily the case.
Interesting.
A lot of kids, I've had adults say to me, my dad died when I was 14, and I was a good student, and I kept it up in school, and nobody knew what I was going through inside. And it's been horrible.
But it comes out sooner or later.
Oh, yeah. It does. And it can come out in different ways. It can come out in illness. It can come out in, all sorts of physical problems. As I'd said earlier, relationship problems, all sorts of things like that. And the other thing that I didn't say when we were talking about what Nakeki is, it's not counseling. It's not therapy. We do not do that. We as facilitators simply hold safe space, because peer support group is incredibly powerful. It's more effective than just therapy for kids with this. It's really awesome. And yes, there are going to be some children that for one reason or another might have a therapist or might need to have a therapist. Yet our program would be totally complementary to that.
I see. Interesting. But the same thing's true kind of for adults, right? If they're going through a bad time from the loss of a spouse or whatever.
Yeah.
You hear of support groups, like hospice has support groups, but a lot of times a therapist is needed to go a little deeper with some people.
And they can get a therapist. That's not a problem. And hospice does have groups for the adults. But hospice doesn't have anything for the children, and that's where, neither hospice does, and so that's where they've been happy that we exist. And, Susie, the estimate is that nearly 1 in 20 children will lose a parent before the age of 16.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, it's a lot. And the other thing is that not only, and this goes for children and adults, when there's been a death, many times there's more than the loss of that loved person. We've had people in our groups who have returned home to Maui because of a death. And it means they've lost the home they've lived in. Their children have had to leave all their friends and schools on the mainland, other islands, to come here. So there's a lot of what's called secondary loss. It's not just the loss of the person. For many people, there's a financial loss, which means, okay, they can't go on vacations, they can't do the things they used to be able to do. Lots of things just across the board. And so these groups are wonderful places for the kids to be able to vent their feelings about it, hear how other kids are dealing with it, and for the parents to see how the other people have dealt with it too. Because, one of the big things for children too is that they feel, unless they have other peers that have gone through what they're going, they feel alone in their grief. And New York Life and the Dougie Center, and I don't remember if it was Arizona State, I don't remember who, but they did a longitudinal study a while ago, and they were looking at resilience and what kids were doing the best 5 years after the death. And the kids who did the best were the ones who could answer yes to, were you able to express your feelings and what you were going through? And the second other important question was if they could answer yes to, was there anybody who understood what you were experiencing?
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And our groups offer that for the kids.
Now, can siblings offer that internally within a family, or is that?
It's interesting. it might in some, but a lot of times siblings aren't talking to each other either because it's not being talked about in the house.
Okay.
Or you might have siblings of different ages. Or a child might discount it because they'd think of themselves as their unit and unique in the larger community.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. We've got to take a short break. We'll be right back with Brooke Brown of the Nakeki o Emalia organization.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we're back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with our nonprofit executive directors and their staff to find out what they are doing in their world. And it's like people say, okay, nonprofit organizations, nonprofit organizations are in every phase of our life, if you think about it. Everything we do, every place we go, there's a nonprofit usually attached to it at this point. It's not just a social service thing anymore. It's there. I mean, it's everywhere. We've got environmental. We've got, well, shoot, we could spend all day talking about that. But we're here with Brooke Brown of Nakeki o Emalia, and she's talking about the support groups that they have for the different age groups from 3 to 18, talking about the loss. Could be a parent, could be a sibling. Could be aunt and uncle. It could be anyone. And I guess the thing that impresses me the most about what you do is that if someone starts to act out, maybe the death was 10 years ago, but all of a sudden there's something just not right. Bringing them to a group like this can help bring that to the forefront, talk it through, and straighten things out for this person. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And that's one reason some people who've called have asked me if we have any kind of time constraint. And I've said, no, absolutely not. It doesn't matter when the death occurred. Because let's just take an example of a young girl who her dad might have died when she was 3, 4, 5 years old. And she might appear to be fine for all intents and purposes, until the first father-daughter dance at her school. And suddenly, it hits her. She doesn't have a dad. Or a child who gets to the age where they can get a driving permit, but they've always known their dad was going to teach them how to drive. And suddenly, no dad. And uncle's not the same. Mom's not the same. Right. So it comes up then. And I don't mean to suggest that every single child needs to come through our doors. I don't mean that at all. I think a lot of families seem to do fine, the kids seem to do fine, and that's wonderful. But I've had people call and they say, I think my kids are fine, I don't know. And I've encouraged them to call me and come and take their reading from the kids, because they might come and the kids might be really glad to be there and say they want to continue. Or the kids might say, nah, I don't want to go back. And I've said, hey, just let us know you're not going to come back. No shame. It's fine. Because my feeling is the kids know we're there. And it might be 4 or 5 years from that moment. The kids want to come back then, they can come back.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So, and you were talking about adults having reflecting back on a loss when they were kids. In the groups with the parents, I mean, can you sometimes see this happening again, sort of thing? I mean, it's happened now to their kids. What happened to them as kids?
So far, the parents have been really forthcoming and talking. I mean, given a situation where people like our facilitators are comfortable listening and talking about death, it's really freeing for them, and it's confidential. They talk. And so I don't really know. I mean, and we're really interested in what is happening right now in terms of really being present to them. So the backstory is not our concern.
Gotcha.
But it's like, what's happening for you right now? What's coming up? And sometimes they might say, well, it's just like a repeat of when my dad died or whatever. But that's great, however. But we're just really urging them to be present to themselves in terms of what's going on with you right now and how can we help and how can the group help.
Do you see, though, in a situation like that where maybe there's a reluctance to help the child or they made it through it, they think, so...
Those people aren't coming in our doors.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I really want to get the word out there. Right now we have a video that's going to be finished at the end of the month, I believe, and we'll post it on our website. And it's going to be my new film that I take on the road for my traveling road show. But it's voices of some of the people who are in agencies here who work with a lot of these families. But I have other people who are adults who had a parent die. And as one woman said, she said, yeah, I was 15, when my dad died, and that's when I started drinking. And then it was weed.
Oh.
And then it was Coke. And then it was ice. And then I was incarcerated. It just breaks your heart. And this person is a fantastic person and in great shape now, but had to work her way through it by herself, and it was hard. She had a really hard path, where a group like ours might have spared her going through all of that.
Wow.
And that's our hope. It's hard when you lose someone you love.
It is, and no matter what you say, I mean, there's a period. We talk about a period of time where it kind of starts to, okay, we accept it. We've kind of we gratefully acknowledge that we've had that person with us for a while. Better to have had them than not have had them in our lives. But then you kind of hit on certain events that like you were talking about, learning how to drive, or that first father-daughter dance, or mother-daughter banquet, or whatever the case might be. And I think that so often we don't put the emphasis on those things that we should.
Well, I think you're right, Susie. And the other thing, you and I are older now, so our brains are mature.
I hope so.
And the brain studies are showing that the brain really hasn't stopped developing until we're 23 or 24 years old. So a lot of these kids, they don't have the bandwidth, in a sense, that they will down the line. So they need help going through this, and we don't need any of this to fester, whether it's festering unconsciously or not. And so that's where these groups can be so beneficial for people. And they can have fun. The groups are not just simply sitting around with mournful faces.
Right.
There's laughter and there's fun. What we want to do with these groups is give the kids new people that they can be friends with who understand what they're going through. So it's an additive thing. They have their old friends, and that's great, but they have new people who understand what they're going through. So they feel validated in their feelings and with what they're experiencing.
And these could be lifelong friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of this relationship they've established.
You bet.
That's incredible. So 2 years we're talking about?
We started there was a lot of paperwork and stuff like that, as you know. We started our first group last September.
Okay. So just about a year then.
Mm-hmm. Almost a year.
That's great. That's great.
And my vision down the line is that we'll end up with so many kids I can really launch a campaign and we'll have a home. I mean, I would love a house of our own somewhere here in central Maui that we could have rooms that were devoted for craft or for playhouses and, where we could leave stuff. Because right now we do one group at... Yeah, we have to pack. We are at Hospice Maui in the evening for our older kids and Grace Bible in the afternoon for the little kids, and everything we have has to be in and out of bins. But to be able to actually have a facility where, some of the kids that get antsy and they need to go outside and shoot hoops, they can do it and they can move. And a place like that would be phenomenal. I mean, that's my dream.
Wow.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Having talked to you for these 2 years you've been working on this, or 2.5 years, I think, probably, you're going to make it happen.
It's happening. We're starting.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else. I mean, the word has to get out, and that's what we're trying to do today, here a little bit, is saying this organization is here for you. We'd love to say it's not needed.
It is needed.
Well, if death weren't a
death hits us all. I mean, that's the thing. Right. I think New York Life puts it really well. I mean, I just got back from a conference, and they were a big sponsor of this. They've donated almost, I think, $5 million this last year to Children's Bereavement Program, or 2016. But their mission is that no child grieve alone. I think that's beautiful.
There you go.
Because that's what we're trying to do.
Right. Power in that group message.
Groups are powerful.
Yeah. Last thoughts. We're just about at that time. I can't believe how time flies. Well,
I'm so grateful, and if anybody wants any information, I'll talk to any groups. Anything to spread the word. If anybody's interested in knowing more, they can call me at 214-9832 or go to our website, which is www.nkoemaui.org. I'd be happy to talk to anybody. It's not about committing to anything. We have our facilitator training coming up in September, but we're full right now. But if anybody's interested, I'd take the names because we do the training every 6 months. And we're going to do some sort of a fundraiser in November that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but I'm open. If anybody just wants to volunteer to help with that, I will take names. So that would be great.
There we go.
Yeah,
okay, so it sounds like we need to get you back on in November to talk about that.
I'm signed up.
There you go. Very good. You plan ahead. That's that's what makes you a great leader.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you for the opportunity today. It's just so important. If anybody listening can just take that away, knowing that children are not necessarily fine just because they look like they're fine.
Right.
That's the big message.
Right. If not today, when?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Okay, and best of luck to you in your sessions and it's such an awesome venture that you're on.
It's really something, and it's an honor to be a part of the whole process. It is such a special journey.
Right.
It's painful for everyone, and there is a lot of richness and beauty along the way too.
Right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's Brooke Brown, who's Executive Director of Nakeki o Emilia. Give her a call at 214-9832 or check out their website at nkoe.org.
Maui.org.
Oh, Maui.
nkoemaui.org.
I got you. nkoemaui.org. There we go. Okay. Thank you much. Have a great day. Oh, we're going to shift gears now. We're going to talk to... who are we going to talk to? Who's next?
Tamara Sherrill. That's me.
I knew you'd jump up there. Why do I have so much trouble saying your first name? I don't get it. You've been on the show how many times?
Boy, I don't know.
Gosh, and it's
Few.
I try to make it harder than it is. Right?
I'm the same way.
Tamara.
Yes, Tamara.
Tamara. I mean, that's so easy. I love it. It sounds so good, too. So Tamara is the executive director of Maui Nui Botanical Gardens, right down the road here from the studio and right across from the stadium or the what is it, the Wailuku
War
Memorials.
football and baseball stadium. Yeah, right where the county has the fair every year.
There we go.
Right across the street.
Right. And it's I just every time I start doing some research on you guys, I'm just totally impressed with how you get everything under the sun growing in there.
Yeah, it's one of those places that's kind of dry and windy and sandy. Central Maui has so much sand. So we actually, this is a pretty special place for a botanical garden. It's got a lot of the collection there. The plant collection is all the Maui Nui species that we possibly can grow. So all the species for Maui County. And they're all native to Maui County, and a lot of them, because of the area, are coastal plants. So they're plants that were once, spread all across our beaches and just inland of our beaches and the wetlands that were just there. And, some of them may not be listed as endangered species, but they're being extirpated really quickly. These little local populations are disappearing all over the different islands of Maui County.
And so we bring what's left or some of what's left to you and say, help.
Well, botanical gardens, we don't do it alone, that's for sure. But one thing that botanical gardens are really good at in terms of supporting the groups that do environmental conservation is we are there to help bank genetically those populations that are disappearing. So, we may be growing plants that were old Hawaiian heritage varieties of taro and sugarcane and things like that have to be grown from cuttings, or we may be growing some of those coastal species that are grown from seed. And either way, whether we're growing them in the ground or keeping them in long-term seed storage, they're there for the groups that are trying to restore old lo'i and grow the old varieties, or the groups that are trying to, take care of the natural areas that still remain, and in some cases, have to replant things that have been lost to invasive species and other things like that.
So now, can people come to you and say, "Hey, I want to recreate the taro patch of the 1890s"?
Well, I've never heard anyone say that, but I have heard people say that about, I want my yard to look like the wild areas. But yeah, taro is one of the plants that is so important to people in Hawaii, and especially to Hawaiians. And there's so many good cultural projects all over the state that are restoring lo'i and restoring old mala and rebuilding the rock structures that might have been there, and in a lot of cases removing old weedy trees. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that what we have is verified by people who are local scholars and experts, and people like Jerry Konanui, Penny Levin, they're particularly good with taro. People like Ed Johnston, who knows all about and has written the book on avo, or Angela K. Kepler, who wrote a huge book on Hawaiian bananas. But just make sure that those are well labeled, that we have some starts of them, and they get out to the people who want to grow them and try them. There's 65 remaining Hawaiian varieties of taro alone.
Oh my gosh.
There used to be somewhere between 300 and 600, so we've lost a lot of those varieties. But it's possible, since they grow from cuttings, that old varieties can still reappear in the patches. So it's this, and with social media is a great way to get this across. There's all these great conversations happening on our Facebook page and other social media sites that have to do with these old varieties. And there's just it takes a village for sure to bring these back and make sure they don't disappear.
Interesting. The affordable housing subdivision that we're doing in Mokohau was a taro patch.
Oh yeah.
And it's surrounded by lo'i walls.
Wow.
And that was one of the things that the state historic preservation people came in and said, you will keep those. And so some of them we had to rebuild, and others were right okay as they were. And then there's what's the area where the water would come into the patch?
The Hawaii.
Yeah. There's actually one of those still there, almost intact, where the gate just needs to be put in place.
Yeah.
And one of the homeowners is going to have that in their yard.
Oh wow.
And one of the requirements for them is to maintain that.
Wonderful.
and not let that disappear.
That's wonderful. I'm
So-
so glad to hear it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things that we made sure that we did it the right way. That this is one of the few areas that is totally surrounded by these walls, and some said, "Oh, you'll never sell those houses if they have to maintain those walls." Most people love the idea that there's
I'm
those walls in their
absolutely sure.
backyard.
Yeah. That's true. That's true, because that's the huge part of the history of this area. And I mean, this was Nava'i Eha. This was the four waters. Waikapu, Wailuku, Waihu, Waiuhu. They were all these huge streams that came down. This was a huge taro growing area that
Yeah.
we're sitting in right now. So
Yeah, it's been for me. It's been very interesting to learn all this about that area and to see. I'm not very good at imagining how things were, and so if there's just enough pieces there, and they tell me the story, then I can start to visualize it.
yeah.
But anyway, we got to take a short break, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about the Maui Nui Botanical Gardens and what you can see when you go there.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we're back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with our nonprofit executive directors to find out what's happening in their world. And this afternoon, the second half of the show, we're talking with Tamara Shrill. Gosh, I don't know why I have such a problem with that name. Actually, I'm having problems with all the names today. How easy is Brooke Brown? And I couldn't get that out. Anyway, one of the things that you brought in when we started talking about things at the Maui Nui Botanical Garden is this breadfruit day, which is something new that you've not done before.
That's right.
Breadfruit, hello, what brought this up?
Well, one of the things we do besides the conservation work that we're trying to do with the partners that work in natural areas and with cultural restoration sites is we have an education program that includes, we host about, more than 60 school groups every year, and we have these Saturday cultural workshops. And the cultural workshops are, they're paid workshops that we bring in experts and people who are, artisans and people who work in, who are basically, well-known cultural practitioners that teach things like kapa making and dyes from native plants. There was Jerry Konanui came and talked about the kalo varieties, and one of the people that came was John Cadman from Maui Breadfruit Company, along with someone from Kahanu Gardens, which that's in Hana, and it's another botanical garden that's run by the National Tropical Botanical Gardens. And they have, and a lot of people don't know this, but they have the world's biggest collection of breadfruit varieties. And
in Hana?
Right here in Hana, yeah.
Wow.
It's between them and another garden that NTBG owns. They have more than 150 varieties collected from all over the world, many of them Pacific varieties. And they also have something called the Breadfruit Institute, which is a group of people that work with NTBG to promote and make sure that breadfruit is valued as a crop, because it's kind of it's one of those things that's an old Hawaiian food. A lot of Pacific Islanders love to come and harvest from the trees at Maui Nui Botanical Gardens. We have some big old Hawaiian types. We have a couple of smaller but just as old, 40 or 50-year-old trees that are Samoan types that have seeds. And so ulu is, something that's kind of secondary to taro and oala in old Hawaii, but for the purposes of island food security and growing trees that are beautiful, that are iconic, and produce this deep shade, ulu is something that is really making a comeback. And John Cadman has the Maui Breadfruit Company, and he came and he demonstrated in these workshops. He was demonstrating how to cook, how to recognize what's ripe on an ulu. Because I don't know if you've ever tried. Have you eaten ulu before?
I don't think I have.
Well, it's this beautiful tree with those divided leaves and then the big green fruit. And a lot of people think you can just pick it at any point, but you got to wait for it to get ripe, and then it gets kind of brown and it gets sap all over it, and it's not as pretty looking. But that's when it's really delicious, when it's still firm and it's mature. And he was showing people in the workshops, how to recognize that and then how to process it and cook it. And he is making these things out of, ulu is kind of two different foods depending on the stage. So you got this fern stage that's it's kind of starchy, and you can substitute it for potato. Mm-hmm. And then at the ripe stage, it's like a sweet, creamy custard. And he makes these things called pono pies, which you can get in a lot of different local places. And he was giving tastes of all the different things he was making. He was showing real simple ways to make ulu. And, with him and the Kahanu garden staff who was talking about propagation and planting and care, he just said, I think it's time we had an ulu festival. I think we need a breadfruit festival here in town. And we'd been to the East Maui Taro Festival many years, and we thought, this is a great idea. This will get more people out to see the great things that are out at Kahanu Gardens, and bring more people into the garden. And, so we've been putting together this Breadfruit Day. It's going to be in just a few weeks. It's August 26th, and it's a Saturday. It's going to be from 9 to 3. We're going to have all kinds of different things on offer. My favorite part, of course, is going to be the food. There's going to be cooking demonstrations from John Cadman from Maui Breadfruit Company. Also, we've got people traveling from Kauai, from the Breadfruit Institute, and from the Big Island, and they'll be doing another demonstration as well of cooking and how to process and what to look for in harvesting. And then we've got lots of people who are going to be doing food offerings. So it's kind of like East Maui Taro Festival in Hana, and it's going to be at least one item has to have ulu for each food vendor. So we have things like fire pit roasted ulu with coconut milk, and ulu hummus, and ulu chips, ulu poi, pono pies, like I mentioned. It's going to be, there's even going to be ulu popsicles. Maui Tropsicles is coming with an ulu popsicle flavor. They've got all different sorts of tropical fruits. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. Of course, we'll have Hawaiian plate with ulu haupia and lau lau and that kind of thing, too.
That's interesting. In your newsletter, you got pictures. This is the spring newsletter for this year, showing ulu can be sweet here as a chocolate pudding base. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, and then the other way is when it's still firm, ulu can be a savory sautéed here with herbs and coconut oil, and it looks like potato.
It's a lot like potato at that stage, and it's really delicious. It kind of has a little bit of an artichoke flavor, and like I was saying, if you pick it unripe and you try to do something with it, it's not that good. And that's how I first encountered ulu. I was like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be edible, And I think that you just have to learn to recognize when to pick it. And the thing that's so great about it, and that can really help people out, is the fact that one tree can produce between 350 and 1,000 pounds of fruit in a year.
Oh my gosh.
So this is, there are so many things that it can be grown here, and this is one of the easiest, most pest-free ones, and, has a real rich heritage in Hawaiian culture. Was used for all different kinds of things. The gum was used, the wood was used, the leaves were used, the sap was used to catch birds and was chewed like chewing gum. And so we're going to be showing all those, as many of those things as possible at this event, too.
Wow.
Not just the food, but a bunch of different free cultural activities. We'll have Lisa Raymond making kapa out of ulu bark, and we'll have poi board makers with papakui eye, and they're made out of ulu wood, and ulu maika, which is a makahiki game. We'll be playing that.
Okay.
So you really will learn about this tree if you come to this event.
So if it bears that amount of fruit, is it like a constantly bearing situation, or does it have its seasons to it?
It does have seasons, and it tends to be, this is right in the season right now. So it's usually like sort of late summer through fall is most varieties. But different varieties have different bearing seasons, like avocados or any other type of tropical tree. So, in Hawaii, it's a shorter bearing season, more like 6 months or so. In other places, where ulu's a staple, it's more like 10 months. So
Wow.
Still, it produces a ton of food.
Yeah,
that
that's incredible.
You can freeze it and keep it for the rest of the year if you like.
Wow, I'm gonna have to check this one out.
Oh, yeah,
I've
please
never
do.
thought that much about breadfruit before.
Yeah, well, and it's also going to be, there's going to be a big native Hawaiian plant sale. So besides having ulu trees, we'll have a lot of different native Hawaiian plants for sale. Native Nursery is going to be bringing 3 different colors of ohia trees. So ohia lahua. They'll have orange varieties and yellow and red, and that's a new thing for them to have all these cultivars of ohia lahua. And they're going to have 2 really nice endangered species, like the Hawaiian gardenia,
Yeah.
nanu, and that one's really hard to find. It has a beautiful fragrant flower, and alula, which is like the one that we call cabbage on a baseball stick. That's another endangered species.
Cabbage on a baseball stick.
It's a cool plant. Yeah, it has
Interesting.
these wonderful flowers that smell like violets. So
Now, the one that you mentioned just before that, the
nanu.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a certain part of the island that grows better?
That's a leeward species. So the last population of nanu that I know about in Maui Nui is on Lanai, and it's just a few old trees out there. The seeds for the nanu here come from D.T. Fleming Arboretum, so we're always connecting with different arboretums and botanical gardens to get these. But they look like gardenia, and they grow well in sort of upland, leeward, dry areas.
Now, during this event on that day, you'll have some of your master gardeners around to talk story with people if they have questions about.
Yeah,
they bought something and it's not doing what they thought it would do.
Exactly. Yes. Well, they're the Maui Master Gardeners, which is for part of the Cooperative Extension Service in Kahului. They train community members to answer resident questions about all kinds of home horticulture, not just native plants, and including all kinds of plant health questions. So yes, you can come ask them. They're going to be the people who are helping people choose native plants, because obviously some of these are rare and not well known, and we'll have tons of information about each plant so that you can make a choice about something that will really do well in your yard.
Well, that's great, because half the time when you buy something, oh wow, that looks great. I want that to look perfect in my yard, but then you find out I can't grow this up country,
Right.
or something to that effect. If someone doesn't know what to plant, and they just say they've bought a new house or something and has nothing in the yard, what would you recommend as some things that would be of interest for them, that's more than just not a focal point, it's something that is useful, like it's something edible, looks nice, is not that difficult to maintain? Where would you start with somebody?
When people come in, that's one of the things we try to do, is we really want more people to be planting native plants in the landscape, and it saves water. If you choose plants from your side of the island and you choose plants that would have normally been found, you're talking a lot less irrigation that you have to pay for. So we do have a real specific kind of cohort of plants that grows at Maui Nui, but if you happen to be in a low elevation dry area like Kihei or Lahaina or Kahului, the first thing that I would do is walk people around and say, what do you like? This is what grows well here. We've been experimenting with these plants for 15 years. God knows we've killed enough of different species, so you can count on these. And, but for people who are upcountry, there are nurseries, there's a really good nursery, Ho'olava Farms in Haiku, and Anna Palomino is an expert propagator. She's been doing it for more than 25 years, I think. And so for people on the North Shore, the first thing I do is find out where are they planting this. So for people on the North Shore, the cohort of plants that grow well there, some of them are at Maui Nui and some of them would be more at her place. So I would direct them to her and I'd show them pictures. I'd say, are you looking for a shrub, a ground cover, a tree? How much space do you have? And then for people who are upcountry, Kula, Makawao, Pukalani, there's another great native nursery. Native Nurseries is the name of it, and it's on Na'alai Road, and that's Jonathan and Ethan, and they're going to be at this La'ulu Day. So I can't. Yeah, it's so specific. The native plants to different areas are so specific. I wouldn't say there's just one that's great everywhere. Maybe Ilima. Ilima grows anywhere, and you do see that one a lot. But I would definitely have to ask questions first. So
Right.
that's what we're there for, is to give those kind of consultations to people.
And that's very important. I mean, because I can think, when I first moved over here and ended up in Kula, it was like, can I grow? Well, I have this thing for rhubarb,
Oh, yeah.
and sometimes I can get it to do its thing, and sometimes I can't. And I think it has to do with the coolness.
That's right.
It
That's
needs
what
to
I've heard,
have a
too.
cold night or two.
Exactly. That's true of apples and even oranges and lots of things have to have that kind of cold snap. And yeah, that's one of the things we do. Even though we focus on only native Hawaiian plants, we have a group of volunteers that meets every week called the Weed and Pot Club, because they weed for an hour.
My favorite club, the
That's
Weed and Pot
right.
Club.
They weed for an hour. They pot up plants for an hour. It's just a 2-hour commitment. Come in anytime. You just walk right in. And they are all gardeners. They always are trading plants together, natives and other things. And there was someone who had gone up to someone's house and gotten rhubarb, and then they brought pictures of, look, it's growing. So I know that's a favorite one, and that is a difficult one because you have to be quite high up. I think she'd gotten it from a garden that's at 4,000 feet.
Yeah. I'm probably too low.
Might be
That's
a
the
little
reason
low,
it's not working like it should. So, I mean, it's fabulous what you do over there. I just I can't say enough. Now you're open.
We're open from Monday through Saturday every week, and we're open from 8 to 4. And we do during the week we do charge admission. Unless you're a member, you're free. And kupuna and keiki are always free every day of the week. Military members are always free admission. Saturdays are always free. So any event that we have, or anytime you want to come on a Saturday, that's open and free to the public.
And memberships are not that expensive.
No, yeah, we start at $25 a year for an individual membership, and that gets you discounts on the plants. It gets you discounts on our Saturday cultural workshops. It's half the price for Saturday cultural workshops if you're a member, and also free admission. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
And then there's also family membership.
Yep, we have family memberships that you can bring up to, I think, 4 people, and then it goes up from there. There are some businesses that come, and they bring, up to 30 people. So there's different levels of membership for people
Interesting.
who want to utilize the garden.
So if they want some more information, they want to talk to somebody, what's the phone number?
You can call us at 249-2798, or you can go to our website at www.mnbg.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I know you are going to be swamped
I
on the
hope so.
26th. Everybody talks about breadfruit.
It is. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited to taste everything.
There you go. Thank you so much. Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Base Yard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your building project. The Maui Nonprofit Directors Association's mission is to provide personal and professional support to nonprofit executive directors, their organizations, and the community of Maui. Please visit our website at mauinonprofit.org for a list of member agencies. And if you see one there that interests you, please go to their website or give them a call and talk to them. Today we visited with Brooke Brown of Nakeki o Emilia and talked about their programs and what's happening. Her phone number is 214-9832. The second half of the show, we talked to Tamara Sherrill and found out what's happening at the Maui Nui Botanical Gardens. Give her a call at 249-2798 if you want more information. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to join us again next week, same time, same place, when we'll feature 2 more representatives of our member agencies. Oh, that's a mouthful. Until then, I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everyone. Aloha.